Greetings, dear viewers, and welcome back to another episode of Game Sharks. I am one of your hosts, Jimmy Good, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Cory Laing. Cory, how are you today?
Good to see you, Jimmy.
Yes, and also we have very special returning guests from Extra Life, Troy Cleland. Troy, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's a Friday and the weekend's just upon us. So
yeah, it's looming, right? It's looming.
Yeah.
But Troy, you're a returning guest. Thank you so much for coming back. I always appreciate that when anybody drops back by. But today I want to start off talking about why you're back here, Troy. We're going to talk Extra Life again and tell us everything about the event this year, and just in case people miss it, you know, how they can help, how they can support, and what is it exactly again.
Well, what it is, and first off, thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure to see the two of you again, even though it's not in person like we did last time in the studio, but it's still awesome to see the two of you. But Extra Life is a marathon of sorts for those of us that are less running a marathon or, that kind of thing, right? I'm not going to run. This is my marathon. I'm going to play 24 hours of gaming, help raise money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Specifically here in the Twin Cities, we support Gillette. We have been supporting them for the last 13 years now. And we have a really good partnership with them. So even during our game day, they come, their executives, their leadership come to our game day and hang out and bring some of the Gillette families and stuff. And really, as a participant, I just, sign up, create my account, share my story and my link to my friends and family on social media, email, any way possible. They do have an app to help. They do have an Extra Life app for mobile for you to try to kind of monitor your personal profile, help raise money that way, kind of recruit people to your team. November 2nd is the big event. It will be 8 a.m. hitting it hard right away, and then go until 8 a.m. Sunday morning, which, daylight savings time will be 25 hours for us, but we're going to troop that. Every year we try to do something cool and different. Last year we had Bad Wolf gaming at our event, and one DM ran from like 8:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the morning, games back to back.
Wow.
Like 10-minute breaks between. And he ad-libbed. He had asked for like 5 words from everybody at the table. He would take those words and have Gen AI generate a story base on those 5 words, and then he would just go. And he did that for everything. So I would say for every 3.5 hours, he ran an event. 10 minutes off, another 3.5 hours, 10 minutes off, like until 1 a.m. This year, we partnered with them again. And then also there's a team or a group in the Twin Cities called Dungeons and Dragons and Drinks. We're going to have like a social hour where they're going to come and hang out at our event between 3 and 6 p.m. And just kind of see what we're doing, do some prizes, drawings and stuff while they're there, and try to have them fundraise. They usually bring in like 150 people to a lot of their events. So this could be a big draw for us this year. We have obviously Dungeons and Dragons happening, and we got Magic the Gathering tournament happening. We got a Smash tournament. We got dad joke competition. We got somebody playing Super Cult Soccer Management card game. It's a card game, and they gather together. So all of them are coming, and they're gonna play a big full series through this whole event from like 1 to 8 p.m. I think it is. So yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a huge event. We got so much planned this year. And that's what we're trying to draw people in, even for that casual person or families. Hey, come on in, sign up for something for a couple hours, raise some money, have some fun, and go home. You don't have to be here for 24, right? To help the cause.
Yeah.
And for people that want to get involved or want to come out and see what we're doing, we're hosting in Edina at the Nerdery's office again this year, 7700 France Avenue. So we're right there in the same building as D. Bryan's across from Centennial Lakes Park. So we'll be there for the whole time. I think we have an open house. I'm looking at our calendar, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. We have an open house. So people can come in and play retro games, console games. We'll have a kind of a roped off area for people to come in and just kind of suggested donation. We're not forcing people to donate, but suggested donation, come in, hang out, play some games, and just see what it's all about. Meet the hospital, meet some of the Gillette kids. So that's kind of what it is. If they want to donate, they can go to elnerds.com. And if they want to see our events, they just go to elnerds.com/2024-events. And they'll see, and they can see the events we have, and then there's links to signing up to those events if they want to sign up to something. So
Cool. That's amazing. And you said is it streaming too?
yeah, we'll have various levels of streaming. Like I know Bad Wolf will be streaming to their stream. We'll have some level of stream of ours. It won't be like super active. Like it'll be more like just an overall view of what's going on in the room. We might do updates periodically or talk in it, but it's mainly just to see what we're doing. And if somebody's doing something cool, we may switch over to them and have them on our main stream and show what's happening. We just don't have anybody to manage our stream yet. So it's like I set it up and then it runs all day. And unless I go over or somebody goes over and changes it, it's pretty static of the activity. But it gives you a point of view of what's happening and kind of the activity going on and all the people coming and going. We try to capture the busiest area. So that's cool. That's what we try to do. Just so you guys know, like I said, this was our 13th year. So our goal this year was 47,000 because that is how far away from raising $500,000.
Wow.
So
amazing.
Cool.
I think we're currently 26,000 away from hitting $500,000 total over 13 years. So
congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Troy,
it's a huge step, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jimmy and I have been doing this show for years, and nothing warms my heart than a community coming together to play video games, but it just ups the ante when there's a good cause attached to that. Just one more time, Troy, for the people that may be seeing this that are local, that is this Friday at the Nerdery in Edina from 8 to 4.
November 2nd.
Oh, November 2nd. Okay,
yes.
And that's a Saturday?
Saturday morning, 8 a.m.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And like I said, that 7700 France Avenue, Suite 285. You'll see it. We'll have signs out front.
Okay.
So it won't be hard to miss.
Awesome.
So yeah, like there's going to be a lot going on. So we have a lot of returning families from previous years, Gillette families. One has been with us since she was 9, and she's graduated and off to college, and she has flown back from Phoenix every year to be at our event. So like that just speaks loads to what our impact is, that her family finds it, even now that she's an adult herself, to come back to hang out with us. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, Troy. It's so cool to hear about that. This event is continuing on 13 years in a row.
Yeah.
And we're going for at least 35 more years.
Yeah,
at the
totally.
very least, that's the least amount. You guys are going to hit 1 million, like you're saying $500,000 coming up here, but like a couple more years, you're going to be like,
I'm hoping
there. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. Thank you, Troy. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
In tandem with this event, getting ready for it, I'm sure you have to blow off some steam and play something, and have some fun before you're setting up, getting ready to play for 24 hours. Do you have any games that like you've been playing to like get ready for the event, or like one or two that you're like, I'm gonna get ready, play this before I get there, and then play it when I'm there?
Well, right now I've been playing Thrones of Liberty.
Oh, really? Cool.
Off and on. I'm not a huge PvP fan. Like I'm not great at it. It's not a part of a game that drives me to play a game, but it has a really good PvE aspects of it too. So I really enjoy that. It almost brings back the old school camaraderie of MMOs where get a party of friends together, run dungeons, run quests, whatever together, right? So that aspect kind of inspires me. We run a guild. Me and a couple friends run a guild together, so we just kind of are playing that. Me and my son, though, are that he also participates in Extra Life. We are ramping up for the early access for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen.
Oh, cool.
That drops in December, and he has my buddy pass, my buddy key that they gave all champion and VIPs. So him and I are this weekend start building our character, like building his character, because he now gains access of season 6 until December 2nd when they take all the servers down and get it ready for early access. So we will probably be playing that. Nice. Mainly him and I, and he's going to mainly stream that. He's a Twitch affiliate, so he'll be streaming that pretty much consistently at Extra Life. This is the game we've been waiting for. I invested in this game 11, 12 years ago as an investor, and I've been pre-alpha seasons now, early access. Like I've been along for the whole ride, so I've been super excited. So that one, we may play Call of Duty Black Ops 6. We're still kind of on the fence. Like there's nothing about it that super excites us other than it's a little bit better than the previous Call of Duty. Congratulations, Treyarch, for, at least accomplishing that task. But we did play the open beta or whatever it was. It wasn't anything like that mind blowing. I'm like, it's okay. SMGs are overpowered, stuff like that. So we may or may not play. It's just problem with a lot of those AAA titles now. Just to get into the game, it's almost $80, and it's like, is it worth me? Am I going to get $80 worth of fun out of this game?
Yeah,
or not? Sure. So we're still kind of weighing our options yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cory and I were talking about this right before the show started, and because both of us have Game Pass, so it's one of those things where we pre-installed some of it, but there's such big downloads that it will eat up your space really quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Like, wow, these games are big.
I mean, they're 160 gigs almost in some aspects of the game, and that's just like Modern Warfare 3 is 160 gigs. It's like, what?
Yeah, I was like, wow, this is a big game. I mean, they're good looking games and they run really well, but I was just like, I was even surprised because I look at some of the other big open world games that I played and stuff, and I was like, I thought those were big, and I was like, I was wrong,
Yeah, I don't know what they do, but man, their games are bigger than just about anybody.
Yeah, so that's very true. Cool. Well, those are the games you've been kind of ramping up and thinking about doing, for the event coming up.
Pretty much. Like I said, Throne of Liberty and Pantheon are going to be the two probably primary when I get to play. I usually don't get playing until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon once everything kind of slows down. Everybody leaves. There's no guests there. It's just us gaming. Then I'm focused on gaming. Otherwise, I end up being probably primarily host. So
nice. Cool. Excellent. Well, Cory, we were talking about Black Ops 6 there, which I suppose we can get into a little bit later, but you've been playing some other things too. And I know there's two things, but I'm going to let you pick which one you want to talk about first.
Yeah. So I'm just about at the end of Astrobot for PS5. Just Astrobot. There's no subtitle or colon. And so it's kind of Sony's big new mascot 3D platformer. I think this is the third in the series. They had the VR game which launched the franchise, and then they had the packing game which came with the PS5. I think that was Playroom. Maybe I'm getting that mixed up. One of the two. I think it was Astrobot Playroom. This one is just called Astrobot. So this is more akin to a Mario 64 or a Mario Galaxy. This is a full-fledged 3D platformer with several worlds. And within each world, you have a bunch of levels where you have the map where you can kind of travel your spaceship in between each level. So if you've ever played like Mario Odyssey, Mario 64, it's that kind of thing. Um, and it's probably my game of the year.
Wow.
It's absolutely incredible. It is just full of inventive, imaginative, levels and world design, and each level has its own kind of hook and theme. So it keeps things fresh. It never really feels stale. Where I think Playroom, it was great. But it kind of felt samey over time. Where this one they throw in some new sort of tools and special abilities just to keep things fresh.
Yeah.
For example, there's like a casino world where you're in like this you're in like this resort casino, but you can slow down time. So there's like enemies throwing playing cards, and you can slow down time and jump on the playing cards to get to different platforms.
Oh, cool.
And there's a kind of a Honey I Shrunk the Kids style level where you can Astro can turn into like a mouse, so you can get into little crevices and unlock
Cool.
new little special hidden secret levels and stuff. And the game is just it's continuously surprising, and it's gorgeous. I think this is probably the most polished video game I've ever played. Like
Mm.
if you go watch some YouTube videos, there's so much going on screen, and it never hitches. It just locks in that smooth 60 frames, and it's pretty remarkable actually. Um, I know a lot of media outlets were kind of pumping it up as the game of the year, and I was skeptical at first, but then after you play a few levels, you're like, okay, yeah, there's something special here. They're not just phoning it in on a 3D platformer, they're doing something with each level to keep it fresh, which is kind of the surprising thing. Um, and the last thing I'll say about it is, and I don't think this is a spoiler, it it plays a homage to like every PlayStation franchise.
Yeah.
They dabbled with that a little bit in Playroom, where you get little collectibles, kind of like Smash Brothers, where you pick up what do you collect in Smash Brothers? Like the little help me
Oh,
out,
yeah, like little figures or whatever.
little
Yeah.
figures and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but in this game, so at the end of each world, you unlock a special level which is completely dedicated to a specific PlayStation franchise. So, and I don't think this is a spoiler, this is well known. So, for example, there's one world that you finish up. There is a God of War level
Yeah.
where you literally turn into Kratos, you're throwing the axe, and it's a God of War thing. And there's a Uncharted level where you turn into Nathan Drake and you're doing cover shooting mechanics. And so I guess the picture I'm painting is they could have easily just made a 3D platformer and made it look pretty, but
Yeah.
they went the extra 20 miles to really make something special. And it's just so much joy. It's just in a world of, you know, not even going to bring up the election, but if you need just a chill out, fun, bright and poppy game, this is the one.
Okay.
So
My biggest question is which of these special worlds or abilities that the Astrobots get from PlayStation specifically was your favorite?
in terms of like the franchise levels,
Yeah.
or I love God of War, but man, I'm a sucker for Uncharted, and I miss that
Uh,
franchise.
yeah.
I've played God of War recently, and I love those games, but I miss Uncharted, and the fact that they give Astro a gun, and
It's
where
so funny.
you're just like shooting things with this little brown leather jacket. Um, there's a Ratchet and Clank level.
Cool. Of course.
Um, that was less impressive because I think the visual design is pretty similar to Ratchet anyways. It's
Yeah.
very colorful and poppy. Um, and I'm not done with the game, so I'm assuming there's at least two or three more. But anyways, I'll stop it there. Astro, I'm not finished with it yet, but it's very high up on my list this year. Love it.
Okay.
Um, so
Might be
yeah.
your game of the year. That's insane, Corey. Look at that. I
Well,
love
No
it.
so far,
kidding.
unless I can include Elden Ring DLC as game of the year, I don't think that counts.
I don't know if it
But
counts, but you can, if
yeah,
you want in your heart, you
yeah,
can say that. It's whatever you want.
yeah. And Indiana Jones is still coming up, so we still got some games coming up.
We still got time. I want to get to your second game, but before we do that, I do want to talk a little Space Marine 2.
Yes.
I like right last time we recorded one of these, Troy, we did this and it was like right before Space Marine came out, and this
It's
has been a
the
game.
Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, the Warhammer 40K
Yeah,
stuff.
okay. Yep.
And if you're familiar, so yeah,
Yep.
this is a sequel to a game that came out like over a decade ago, and it was like, are we ever gonna get a sequel? And I remember seeing the cinematic trailer for this and watching it and not believing it. I was like, this will be for something else, Warhammer 40K, and then they're like Space Marine 2, and I'm like, no way! Like, I can't believe they're doing this. But yeah, Space Marine 2, it's one of those unabashed video games, what I like to call it. It is like as straightforward as it possibly can get. You play as like an 8 or 9 foot tall space marine. You go around killing aliens and evil space marines, basically. And
Hmm.
yeah, this came out about a month and a half ago, almost 2 months by the time this video is coming out. I'm still playing this thing. I went through the campaign, which took me on like normal difficulty, like I think it was like 7 or 8 hours. It's not a huge, like massive campaign, but they have these operations modes where you can play with up to 3 players, and it's kind of like a parallel campaign. So a lot of the missions there are running tangential to what's happening in the main campaign to kind of fill in the gaps for the story, which I really appreciate. And that's where I've been spending most of my time kind of grinding those missions out, because there were 4 levels of difficulty. Now they've added a 5th level of difficulty for all those sadomasochists out there. And basically you're just like leveling up any one of, I believe it's, is it 5 classes or 6 classes? But yeah, there's a lot to get invested in. And the thing is about these types of games, I love a third person action game, and that's what this is. So unlike a Gears of War or Uncharted, you do have shooting mechanics, but there is not really cover system. Yeah, you can kind of dip around like walls and things like that, but for the most part, you're out there, you're fighting for the Emperor, of course, and you're gunning down the Xenos threat. And it's a real joy to play. Like it's that kind of the catchphrase, the visceral feeling that you get for something like a Gears of War, because the thing they have, and they had it before the Lancer, but it's the chain sword, and it's like basically a sword that is a chainsaw. So just think about how good that would feel. But yeah, these guys, the thing they really nailed, I think, was like the feeling of being a walking juggernaut. So that means it's like good and bad, because you can feel the momentum as you're moving, but sometimes you want to be more reactive, and your giant space marine can't move like some of the other characters. Like he's not moving like Dante from Devil May Cry. Let's just say that much. But
The agility isn't there, right?
exactly, it's not there, not yet. But maybe one day they'll they'll figure that out. But yeah, it's interesting because this game, like I said, it came out back at the beginning of September, and one of the kind of criticisms I was hearing about it is like a lot of people didn't feel like it was worth the full price, because the campaign, like if you're doing the PvE stuff, there's 7 to 8 hour campaign potentially, depending on how long it takes you. Then there's the operations mode. They also have a PvP mode, so Space Marines versus Space Marines. But if you're not into that, you're kind of relegated, obviously, to the campaign or the operations modes. But for me, I've been going and grinding up the levels. They just added a new operation, and they're going to keep kind of drip feeding us those operations as time goes on. And a horde mode is on the way. So I think what I'm guessing is, and this is from the same dev who made World War Z, is that they didn't realize how big this was going to be, and they put it out and they're like, all right, here's our plan and we'll see how it goes. And then it was really robust and people were just eating it up so quickly. And it was like, well, in a year's time, I think if you look back on this, it'll be like, wow, there's a ton of operations, the horde mode's there, some other things are going to be there, and I think it's going to be an even more desirable package. But even though I say that, I love the first Space Marine, and I was there like day one, and I was so happy to play it. And it retains a lot of that very brutal violence that I appreciated from that one. Even though I do miss the orcs from the first game, because there's something about those weird orcs with their funny, like, soccer hooligan accents that I really miss. But yeah, I've just really been enjoying this one. So if you guys have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them.
Go
So
ahead, Troy.
I guess my biggest question, because I'm not a Warhammer, I've never played any of the Warhammer games.
Yeah.
what is the style of game? Like, what could you compare it to another game that might its play is similar, but it's in a different, obviously different realm.
Yeah. For me, like it's kind of this mixture where, like I said before, it's kind of got like the third person, like they want you to be out there fighting, kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
Devil May Cry or Darksiders, kind of. But then there's also like third person like shooting mechanics too. So it's like Gears without the cover. So it's like those two mixed together. So you're kind of doing this dance between like melee and then kind of falling back and shooting, depending on the class too that you're playing. But
Right.
in the main campaign, it's like you're a jack of all trades. You don't have like a specific class. And then occasionally on certain levels, they give you the jump pack. So it's basically a jet pack that allows you to jump up in the air and then you can kind of crash down onto enemies. And that thing is amazing. It's so much fun. But they relegate it to certain levels that have a lot of verticality because the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the time it would be kind of broken in a campaign. But they do have a class that has that in the operations, but it's so much more limited in scope and scale. So it's like kind of sad. It's like I want to jump really high in the sky and then smash down. So yeah, it's like this weird kind of hybrid mixture
Okay.
of these types of things. I wish there was like a specific thing I could compare it to as far as like, oh, it's 1-to-1, but it feels kind of like
All
its
right.
own weird amalgamation.
Taking
And
pieces of different game styles and putting it in.
yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing too is like from the first game, they're kind of bringing it back. You have like health and you also have armor. And the way to replete or to replenish your armor is either like be out of combat for a long time or you have to get in the fight and like execute enemies or these gun strikes. When you dodge perfectly, you can kind of like hit a button and you can do like a slow motion, kind of like shoot something, and that
Yep.
replenishes some of your armor. So it really incentivizes you to stay in a fight versus to kind of like run and hide, which most other games kind of want you to do.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Sounds cool. I got some friends that are playing. Actually, I got a friend right now playing it.
oh,
I
cool.
see him. He's on playing Warhammer 40K. So I was like,
Yes. Yes.
So I was
Yeah, bro.
just curious. I outside of that, I've only seen the trailer and some snippets of the gameplay. It
Yeah.
looks intriguing. It just like I said, for me, I've never been into Warhammer, so I just have never thought about jumping into it.
Yeah.
So it might be interesting. I may have to give it a shot.
It's a rabbit hole, my friend, because what you do, at least what I've done, is like you play a little bit of this, or like in the past, I play like Dark Tide or whatever, and then I start to be like, I'll just like look up a few YouTube videos on it, and then it's like this rabbit hole, of course, of like learning that there's like this vast multi-decades lore on all this stuff, and it's like, whoa, it's like you're uncovering, it's like you're lifting a log and you're finding this whole new world, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot to unpack if you want to, but you don't have to know any of that to enjoy this game,
Right.
which is nice
Cool.
as well. Hmm.
It's the first game on 360. Did they skip a generation?
Yes,
That's
dude,
what
it
I
was on
thought. Yeah.
360, and that's why like,
Yeah.
oh, that first game too, and I loved it so
Yeah.
much. But yeah, it's weird to think that's how far back that one
Right.
is. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
I
wow,
loved I love that first game. And you bring up Warhammer. I don't know how much of Warhammer was even in the marketing of that first game.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it was there. I'm not saying it wasn't there, but
yeah,
I just remember it was Space Marine.
yeah, Space Marine,
Mm-hmm.
I think the Warhammer logo was probably just right above it, and I probably just didn't even really mentally think about it back then.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I wouldn't let the Warhammer stuff, scare you off. Certainly not just talking to you, Troy, but just anybody that would be watching. I don't think you need
Right.
to be baked into the
no,
Warhammer,
no,
universe. But yeah, no, I can't wait to play this. I would be playing it right now, but I have like 3 games I'm trying to wrap up, and then I'm definitely, as I was telling Jimmy earlier, um, I love that first game, and I love Gears of War, and I love third person. Man, it's hard to beat a swarm,
yeah,
right?
I agree. Yep.
It's this very
Mhm.
satisfying feeling when there's a swarm coming at you. And I think
Yeah.
Space Marine does that really well.
Yeah, which is interesting because like in this game too, I think they call it like the swarm engine, but
Oh,
they
okay.
have more enemies, actual enemies you could like shoot on screen than I've seen in almost any other video game
Yeah,
ever. And I think it's a lot of the pedigree of coming from World War Z, where it was like they're throwing as many zombies at you as they possibly could. And
right.
they're still supporting that game, which is amazing because that was the thing someone
Wow.
else talked about. They're like, the latest update for that just came out. And they're like, if you want to know how long we support our games, it's for a really long time. So yeah,
Wow.
there's moments in the game where you're like playing and you see this like horde of enemies coming at you, and you're like, there's no way that all of them are coming. It's like, yes, they are. So it's like start
Yeah.
shooting now, which is really cool. So yeah, and again, that first game, pretty robust, nice campaign. They had another like co-op mode that was really hard, and they also had PvP. So it's one of those like it feels kind of like a throwback to when games had like 3 modes like at launch that weren't separated. It was all just one package, and it was like, oh, here's the video game. Play the video game. It's like I like
Mhm.
that. I appreciate that a lot. So thank you, Space Marine
I mean,
2.
even not playing this game, it almost makes me think something that I have played similar, maybe like Helldivers, right? It's a space
Yes,
marine
totally.
fighting some,
That's a great point. Yeah.
creature against us, right?
Yeah.
So I probably would get into it just because I loved Helldivers. Like Helldivers was awesome. So
So good.
that whole space marine, like most people like Cory said, you saw Space Marines. You're like, yeah, you didn't even notice the Warhammer part. You just saw
Yeah.
Space Marines. So who doesn't want to sit in a big juggernaut suit and fight creatures? So
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Which, okay, that's, Helldivers 2 is probably a great point of comparison. I was just thinking, I was like, okay, I'm trying to remember back. Does Helldivers have any, I'm sure they have some melee stuff, but it's mostly shooting, right? Like you're kind of
yeah,
falling
it's
back
mainly
shooting.
shooting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Shooting grenades.
Yeah.
Got throwables. You can
Yeah.
call in strikes, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
I
yeah,
loved the first game, and then when they came out with 2 and they changed the perspectives, I was like, you know what? Good for them for like not just
yeah.
being like, we're just gonna do the same thing. It's gonna be upped. It's like, nope, we're doing like a third person crazy game, and people
And they made it
love
10
it.
times harder. It's like 100 times harder than the original Helldivers.
Exactly. It's
So
like the spatial awareness. You're like, oh, I have to turn around now, versus in the past, you'd be
yeah.
like, oh yeah, I see them coming. Here they come. Oh
So yeah,
man.
I can see myself probably liking Warhammer. So it'll have to be added to my list of games.
Add
Like
it to
Corey
the
said, I have
list.
a list of games
Hmm.
that I'm trying to pump through. So
Yeah. Well, and hopefully if you have friends to play it with, you can go through like some of the operations where you can have like the various classes, which class composition to anybody watching does matter. You can't like double up on the same class. They won't allow you to do that, but it does behoove you
nice.
to have like kind of like a long range damage dealer, someone up close, and then maybe some sort of kind of support because they have the classes to do those types of things, which kind of it sounds strange where you're like, how does a space marine, who's the supporting space marine? But there's a guy called the Bulwark, and he's got a big shield, and he puts a little banner on the ground that replenishes armor, and he is fantastic, and I love him very much. So,
I like when they put thought into games like that because I admit that actually encourages co-op play, right?
oh,
Because
totally.
it
Yeah.
requires specific roles to accomplish, and like if you don't, you're not successful. You can't do it. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I've been amazed a few times on some of the like the randoms that I've been playing with where they're like so good at the combat, and I'll like watch them after I've been downed, and I'm like, how are they doing this? But one thing that I do appreciate about this one, as opposed to like a Left 4 Dead or something, they don't have any enemy types for the most part that like there's like maybe one once in a while that can like pin you down, but you can get out of it yourself. Whereas in like those other games, the incentive is like, well, if you wander off alone and you get pinned down, you're gonna die. That can still happen kind of in this game, but you can still fight your way out of it. So it kind of
right.
still, incentivizes the team play. But if you have some like lone wolf on your team who is very competent, hopefully they won't, get messed up because they were looking for some sort of collectible that was off in the distance or whatever else. But yeah,
Cool.
it's really great. And the game looks amazing. It runs super duper smooth. I haven't really had any problems with it that I can recall. And yeah, it's just a blast. And I totally recommend it to people who've either played the first game, Helldivers is a great comparison, or Gears or anything like that. So yeah,
Cool.
those are my thoughts on Space Marine 2. It might be a game of the year contender for yours truly, but then again, I'm really biased because I've been waiting for this for a long time. So so I'm happy it's out. Yeah. Sorry, Cory, you have another game you want to talk about here, that you might be wrapping up.
Yes, I do. I'm not quite wrapped up. I'm probably halfway through, I think,
Okay.
but maybe not quite halfway through. But yeah, I'm playing Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. So this is the new kind of top-down isometric 2D. Is it 2D? Is it 3D? No one will ever know. There's no way of knowing. Um, it's the new Zelda that's not Tears of the Kingdom.
Yep.
And the significant thing about this game is you technically for the first time you play as Princess Zelda. Now, there's arguments to be made like, oh, you can play as Zelda in Smash Brothers, or you can play as Zelda. There are
Yeah.
some one-off situations where you can like control the character Zelda, but this is the first game that Princess Zelda is the protagonist, so you are primarily playing as Zelda, and it's great. Um, it's not my favorite Zelda. Probably I don't think it would break my top five, but maybe top 10.
Yeah.
Um, so the cool thing about this game, so it's running on kind of that chibi art style engine that they did the
Yeah.
last one. It was a Oh God, it was a Game Boy remake. Link to the something or another. I can't
Yeah.
remember. It's hard to keep
Link to the
track of.
Past.
No, not Link to the Past. So they had Link to the Past on Super Nintendo. Then they had, oh God, I can't think.
Another
Link
one.
Between Worlds was the one on 3DS. Um, and then they did a remake on Nintendo Switch. Troy, maybe you can look it up while we're talking. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, go ahead.
It
You
was
keep
it was a
talking, I'll look it
Nintendo
up.
Switch Zelda game, but it's running on that art style engine. But um anyway, so the interesting thing about this game is you are not really doing melee combat with a sword. You have a wand where you copy things in the world and they're called echoes. And so
Yeah.
you are manipulating the world with objects. So it's kind of building a bridge between Breath of the Wild and a traditional Zelda game where
Hmm.
you are using elements in the world at your disposal to kind of break the game and
Yeah.
kind of break up the rules a little bit about what you can achieve in a video game, which is great. Did you find it, Troy?
Yeah, it's Link's Awakening.
Thank you. Link's
Nice.
Awakening. Yes. Yep. So it's
Because
running
that's
on,
the only one I can look at that looks anything different than all of the
yeah.
others. You know, Breath of the
Ah,
Wild, blah blah. Like
yeah.
it's a completely different art style than all of the
Yes.
others.
Hmm.
Yep.
So
Thank you. Thank you for looking that up. Yeah, Link's Awakening. So it's running on that engine. So if you're familiar with that. So yeah, other than that, it's a pretty traditional kind of top-down Zelda adventure. Now, the funny thing about this is they give you the wand where you can kind of copy and paste items in the world to kind of navigate. But I think they were still afraid to not give you a sword. So there's actually an ability in this game where for a brief period, it uses up your magic power. You can literally turn into Link and use your sword. Um,
Hilarious.
which is actually really smart
Yeah.
because the only other way to proceed with combat is you copy enemies in the world as your echoes and then you use them at your disposal. So
Hmm.
um so picture a traditional Zelda game, but rather than swinging your sword, you are spawning other enemies to fight the other enemies. So
Cool.
it's kind of this game of sitting back and watching the madness take place.
Yeah.
Um at first, it was very frustrating to me because I'm getting hit by enemies and I literally can't hit them with a sword.
Hmm.
I almost uninstalled this game because I'm like, this is so annoying. There's enemies in the world and I can't actively combat them. No
Yeah.
pun intended. You have to use your echoes to fight for you.
Yeah.
Then probably about an hour or two in, you do get the sword. It's pretty limited. You have like I said, you have a magic bar. It can be upgraded. So there are things in the world where you can upgrade the sword, upgrade your magic. Um, but what I will say is once you get in the hang of the loop of using your echoes, it actually becomes really fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the I don't want to say it's just like a spin-off. I think this is the new Zelda game. I think it deserves that kind of street cred. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's just a spin-off." The real Zelda game is Tears of the Kingdom. It's like, okay, I don't think that's quite fair. Um, there's a lot going on in this game that kind of separates it from the pack, and it's cool. You can play as Princess Zelda. I think that's a cool thing. Um, Again, I don't think it's in my top five Zelda games ever, but I'm enjoying it. If I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it a solid 7 out of 10.
Okay.
It's different. It's not going to be for everybody. I will say it's huge. The map is huge. It seems like you can tackle dungeons in any order for the most part. So it does kind of give you that freedom to explore that you get from Tears of the Kingdom. It's very much like Nintendo said, "Oh, we really spoiled people with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. How are we gonna pull that back and give them a
Yeah.
traditional Zelda game?" I think it's too late to go back.
Yeah.
So I think this is gonna be their new platform moving forward for 2D Zelda games. So they
Okay.
got their big 3D Breath of the Wild. Now they have their 2D games. And while I think it's great that you can play as Princess Zelda, I still find the combat pretty frustrating. Using the echoes to fight for you seems fairly unsatisfying in most situations. That's why I think I bumped it down to probably a 7.
Yeah.
I get why they did it, but in a practical gameplay use, um, it's just not as fun as swinging a sword and
Yeah.
shooting an arrow and throwing bombs and
Yep.
using the boomerang. And
Hmm.
though it turns out those things are more fun, I think if they would have given Princess Zelda like a staff, something different,
Yeah.
something that you could still get that satisfying, for lack of better words, hit, where you're
Yeah.
actually attacking. I think the wand is neat to watch this stuff unfold on screen, but from a combat scenario, it's just slightly unsatisfying.
Interesting. Well, it's fascinating to hear about that because when I think of Zelda, especially in Smash Brothers, she has such a big suite of abilities and magic. And maybe that's the route they should have gone instead, is be like, all right, she has like this diamond shield, she can throw out this like projectile explosive, like all these things she could do. She could teleport, but they don't have any of that in this game.
Yeah, and I'm not, like I said, I'm only halfway through, so maybe something
Okay.
like that is coming my way. I doubt it.
Yeah.
They really want you to use the wand to come up with really creative ways to navigate and to engage in combat. And it's cool. Like I said, it's different. If it's not your jam, well, you can go play. I'm so sorry, Troy, the game that you just had, Link's Awakening.
Okay.
Um, or you could play Breath of the Wild. Those games are still out there, and
Yeah.
I just I feel like what they did here is really cool. It's really neat. I don't think it's going to be for everybody, and I don't quite think it fully just hit for me.
Hmm.
It's a neat experiment. But again, I'm only halfway through, and yeah, we'll see. I don't.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have on that for now. There's a lot of side quests. That was the other thing that surprised me. So there's sort of you can kind of branch off and go do other things, and there's a lot of crafting and potion making. They really beefed up the systems in this game, so there's a lot to do.
Okay.
Um, so in terms of like content, there's a lot here. It's just that lack of physical combat for me that's just unsatisfying. But
Yeah.
there's a lot to love and there's a lot not to like. So
Yeah, well, that's true. So my question too is like, do you level up the summoning? Because you said you can like level up the sword and stuff. Do you like level up how you like summon things?
not really. So what they do is there's different levels, there's different tiers to each specific echo. So um trying to think of what are some of those enemies in Zelda, the Bobo Link, Bobo Kink or Bobo Link, whatever the
Oh, the bokoblins?
Thank you. Thank you. So you can defeat those and then turn into an echo, which you could use as your disposal. But those go up in tiers. So you'll have
Okay.
like a level 1 creature to use to fight for you. You'll have like a level 3. Um, and so you'll get stronger echoes to use.
Okay.
Um, but it's almost like they want you to use your echoes to navigate the world and sometimes avoid combat. Sometimes you have no choice,
I see.
but you can do really funny things like spawn a table in front of an enemy and then they get confused, or you can spawn 12 bushes and box in an enemy and watch them
Okay.
bounce around in the middle. So you can do really creative, fun stuff. There's a lot of fun YouTube videos of people using their echoes to do really creative things. So you're not really leveling up the wand per
Okay.
se, mainly just the sword so far, but you'll get better echoes if that makes sense at your disposal.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think. That's kind of it so far. yeah, I don't know if you have any other questions. Like I said, I'm about halfway through.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a very different Zelda game for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Troy, are you a Zelda guy at all? I can't remember.
Um, I played it way back before you guys were even born. You know, probably
Hey, I
some of
was
the
born in
early.
83, Troy.
When you okay. So when you guys were still running around, I was, a teenager, almost adult, where I think the first Zelda came out. So yeah, I mean, I had friends that had a Nintendo. We played Zelda, but it wasn't one that I went out and got. Like, I know my son's fiance, she is a huge Zelda fan. She owns every Zelda. Even if she doesn't have the game system, owns about every copy of Zelda was ever made. So she's a huge fan.
Okay. Interesting.
Cool.
Well, it's like
Awesome.
it's fascinating to hear about this game, Corey, because like I think about other game franchises where they'll have kind of like the main one and then they'll kind of do something different and people will kind of be like, I don't want to play that one. It's like the spin-off or whatever. But it seems like a similar game in some respects to like a Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, but packaged very differently and obviously not maybe to the same scale. But all that being said, I'm a guy who's like, I was just streaming Tears of the Kingdom the other day. Like that game is like insanity. Like, I mean, I still don't understand like the ability to just jump through the world and like swim vertically through it. I'm like, that's crazy to me. So do they have any like weird physics-based things in this game like that?
Yeah, they do. Nothing quite to that elaborate
Okay.
level like they do in Tears of the Kingdom, obviously, because this is technically in a 2D space. So there's only so much
Yeah.
they can do.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can break the world. So if you think about what like a 2D Zelda game looks like, you'll see like trees in the background, but it's on a top-down plane.
Yeah.
You can actually get like on top of those trees that look like they're touching the screen
Cool.
because you can build objects to get up on top of those trees where in, 2D classic Zelda games of yesteryear, there's no way you could do something like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of physics, not really. Um, Not that I've seen,
Okay.
it's more about like building things to get around other things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that sort of sense. I think the bigger conversation, just to wrap up my thoughts, is it seems that the Zelda franchise in general is just moving further and further away from good combat. Like
Yeah.
even in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, you have the weapons that break, and they
Yep.
want you to use things in the world to break the game and be creative, and it's great for streaming, and I get that.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Man, as someone who's just been playing a lot of Elden Ring, which I think has great combat, or like you talked about Devil May Cry earlier, or I just want them to get back to satisfying combat.
Yes.
They used to be that way. If you look at Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess or even the original Zelda, you have all these things at your disposal. It just seems like they're moving further and further away from that.
Yeah.
Um, their whole philosophy now is oh, what kind of crazy stuff can you build to break the game and do this and do that? And while I think that's really fun, I think they need to balance things out a little bit.
Sure.
Just my opinion. But we'll see how it goes.
Okay, cool. I'm interested to hear after you complete it if anything changes or you're like, yeah, it's still, my ranking
Yeah.
for it has remained unchanged. One thing I want to talk about here at the very end, because Troy kind of brought it up earlier. It's coming out today at the time of this recording, but Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which Troy, you were saying didn't necessarily, reinvent the wheel or do anything crazy. You said it was okay. Are you gonna like you might play it, for the event coming up, but do you think it's something that you'll probably jump into?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it enough better. I liked it better than the the previous, right? The previous, I
Mm.
think, even the further it went in, just became a bigger dumpster fire than it started as. And you could see that they cared less and less about the game itself. So when this one came out, it's like, hey, we care about movement. We want to do something cool with movement. Omni movement, it's cool and all, but it is also a very gimmicky. It's one of those things that you pick Omni movement at the wrong time, you put yourself in a bad situation. It's probably end up getting you killed. And also, at least being a keyboard and mouse player, I feel Omni movement puts me at a disadvantage because it's harder to do the key combinations to use Omni movement versus doing it on a controller. Like it's almost second nature.
Okay.
I do like the realistic movement because I mean these are movements people could do in real life, like jump backwards and slide and all these things. The gunplay seems nice. It's a beautiful game, so I do see myself playing it at some point. It's just I'm having such a hard time spending what they want, even at the low end, to get just to buy the game.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you have, if you want any of the cosmetics, then you got to buy the battle pass, and then you got to like, it's just so much. By the time you're done, you spend over $120 on a game that I may pay to play casually. Like, to me, is that worth it? Do I wait for it to go on sale? Something like that. So
Yeah.
May I offer possibly a solution? So you're a PC player. Can you get Game Pass on PC or no? Can you
yeah,
just
you
spend 20
can. I
bucks?
have a hard time supporting Microsoft's Game Pass more than I have to.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
It's for me. I think that bothers me the most right now is because they've always said all the new games will never have them in Game Pass right away. And the minute they acquired Activision, they're like, all new games will be in Game Pass. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Now you're forcing us all to buy your Game Pass and not spend $100 on a game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it. You get so much more for the Game Pass. It's just,
Yeah.
I already have a Steam library. I don't
Yeah.
need another launcher on my computer,
Yeah.
So, and I've heard that I have friends of mine that went and bought Game Pass and then tried to link their accounts, and it said it couldn't because it was already linked to their Steam account.
Oh.
So then basically they're starting their account over from zero. They don't have any of the things that showed that they have anything before because they have a Steam account and a Game Pass account. There's probably a way to fix it, but it doesn't seem easy. Like it's not an easy fix.
Yeah.
So
my Game Pass behavior is very product specific. So if there's a game coming out that I want, I will snatch it for that month. I don't think that's great for everybody, but I know a lot of people just pay the 20 bucks a month and then they just have an endless supply of new games to play. But
right.
Jimmy, I know you probably dabble a little bit more than I do in that stuff, but
Yeah, well, I try a bunch of things that I never would have tried. I guess like to me, it feels like the closest I can get like going back to like a Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, where it's like I could be like, "What's this?" and then I try it, and I'm like, "That was cool," and then I'll either get really invested or be like, "Nope, I don't need to," you know. But for this, I haven't really played a Call of Duty for a long time, so what I did is I downloaded Modern Warfare 3 and I played some of the campaign, which was cool, and then I played like a few matches. And apparently it's supposed to be skill-based matchmaking. I don't know what was going on because I was playing against people who clearly have been playing for a long time. There was a man in a white bunny suit who was running around, and when I would watch his, like, after he would destroy me, I'd watch what he was doing and, like, what he was looking through, and it looked like he was playing a different game because he had like these dual SMGs that were like rainbow, and he was moving so erratically. I was like, how do you even know what's happening? How do you even know what's happening? So I was like, okay, so we still have that in Call of Duty, which is great. But yeah, I might jump into this one just because I have a bunch of buddies who want to try it out, and I was always a fan of the Treyarch ones the most. Like Black Ops 1, I played in college, and that was like the Call of Duty that I would be like, yeah, I'll play those. Like the Treyarch ones are my favorites. And I think Treyarch even helped out a little bit on Overwatch back in the day with like some of the shooting mechanics and stuff, which is interesting. But yeah, so I'll probably jump into this one. And I was just kind of curious to hear you guys' thoughts because I know Troy mentioned it earlier. And Cory, I know that you sometimes play with family, maybe. So it's one of those things that maybe you just have to play it. Like no matter what Call of Duty comes out, you're just like, I just have to do it. So you'll probably be playing one way or another, right, Cory?
Yeah, I'm gonna check out the campaign. I actually just fired it up right before this recording, and I have it on pause right now.
Okay, nice.
Gonna play through the campaign and check out a little bit of multiplayer, and yeah, looking forward to just checking it out.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the Omni movement stuff works, and especially on controller, because I know Troy, you're kind of saying it wasn't as great on PC, but maybe it'll be a little bit better there. I don't know, because I know
It's
there's a
way
thing.
smoother on controller.
Yeah, they're touting this kind of, and for people who don't know, this like this new movement system that allows you to pull off some things that you weren't able to do previously, like you're saying, kind of like the jumping backwards and shooting thing. And
Yep.
yeah, I still found that in multiplayer though, sometimes just on the right objective, if you go prone and you don't move that much, people don't know you're there. Like they're all looking for targets, and I'm just like laying on the ground. I'm like, beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, in Black Ops 6, it's a little different. It's harder to hide in that aspect. You
Okay.
can't do that in this like you did with Modern Warfare 3.
Oh, you can't lay down?
Well, you can. It's just it's harder to hide yourself on the points
Okay.
or whatever. The points are more open and
Mhm.
less, covered by, I think, at least the maps that we played during the public open beta. I'm most excited about zombies, just
Sure.
because it comes back to the similar of like old school zombies, wave style zombies.
Yeah.
But then following the story that I followed through Modern Warfare 3's DMZ, right? So that story kind of follows over. So
Cool.
it's going to be it looks fun. It looks interesting. I know I have a ton of friends that all play Call of Duty. They're all getting it. So we will at some point get it. It'll just be peer pressure.
Yeah.
It's just when I want to spend the money. And I think my son's philosophy too is like, I think we're going to wait a little while until all of those people that are like what you want to call the hot sweaties or the like the tryhards, right?
Yeah.
Are leveled up. So when we come in and we get into matches, we're not jumping in and fighting against those guys day one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
and hopefully
sense.
make the game a little bit more fun for us.
That's the hope.
So cross my fingers.
Cross the fingers, right? Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, for sure. See, this is the thing, guys. Why you're so easy to talk to. We could do this all day. Unfortunately, our time is running low. But I wanted to give Troy one more chance to bring up the event and the times and everything right before we wrap up completely. So, Troy, take it away.
Yeah. So just to repeat, we're doing Extra Life November 2nd. So that's Saturday in Edina, Minnesota at 7700 France. And we will be open at 8 a.m., going till 8 a.m. Sunday, but we have an open house from 8 to 5. We have a bunch of different events happening that you can check out on our elnerds.com/2020-event or 2024-events. You can donate on that same elnerds.com website. You can also join us if you want to. You can join the team, help us make our $500,000 goal for the 13 years together, meet some cool staff, and just have fun. We have food catered in pretty much all day, off and on. Cory, you're more than welcome. If you're not busy that weekend, come on out, say hi, bring the wife or whatever, bring the rest of the staff from the channel out if they want. I know a few of them follow us on Facebook, so they always like our stuff. So I mean, it's just going to be a lot of fun. Really, it's hard to pass up when it's for kids. Like it just really pulls to the heartstrings, especially when you see these kids. They have no arms or they have no legs, and they're gaming just in that like a normal kid. Like we have one girl that can't make it this year, but she's been there before, Ari, and she has no arms, but she was playing Minecraft with her feet on a keyboard and a mouse like an average person.
Wow.
Like she was building and moving and like unbelievable. Like it's just crazy. So when you get to see these kids and they don't know that they're any different. Yeah. And that's why this is awesome, because they can come out and be a kid and no one looks at them differently. No one treats them differently. They're just there gaming and having fun with everybody. So come on out, help us support this cause.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank
Troy.
you. Yeah, thank you, Troy. Thank you so much for coming back on the show again. I appreciate it. Yeah, really do.
Thanks
And,
for having me, man.
Of course, yes. And also, Cory, thanks to you. I appreciate you being the co-host with the most, as per usual. Thanks to QCTV. Thanks to all of you, dear viewers. We appreciate you. And until next time, you take care.